Hey everyone, Mark here, Mark B Markets. Thanks for joining me for another Greenbridge market analysis. Hope you all enjoyed your holiday here in this country. And if anyone else celebrates it, okay, great. So thank you all for joining me. In this session, we're going to look at Bitcoin. As you know, my new format, I just analyze Bitcoin, and then after that, I answer your questions. So if you have a stock or an altcoin that you would like to see analyzed, please share it in the chat now. If it's an altcoin, make sure to put USD or USDT after the symbol so I analyze the right symbol, and we'll go with that. So let's get this thing started. This is for educational purposes only. For investment advice, please consult a licensed investment advisor. Let me say hello to my people. All right, we got, hey, Nick and Travel, good to see you. All right, Elizabeth, HS, all right, thanks for joining. We got X, we have Alex, all right. Of course, we have Schwartz, my international man of mystery. Thanks for joining us. Shervin, Mr. Plow, okay, cool. We got the whole crew here. All right, so let's get this thing going. First things first, today is Monday, so we want to take a quick look at the economic calendar. All right. Again, this is important for Forex pairs, or if you're involved in certain stocks that could be very sensitive to interest rate news or stuff like that. So let's take a look at the calendar here real quick. I'm just going to go over it off screen. Now, today, I saw this, if I read this correctly, today at 3:05, actually right now, Chairman Powell speaking, okay? So that's interesting. He can say something that can surprise things, and this market's been acting very strange over the previous week, right? Which, again, is typical of holiday environment, but usually we see optimistic type of price action, right? And it wasn't so optimistic on Friday. Anyway, so he's speaking right now, so we can see some wild movements as we're talking. Now, throughout we have China. And an NBS manufacturing PMI at 8 p.m. Eastern time tonight. After that, on the 30th, which is tomorrow, we have for Europe consumer price index. Usually those numbers come out like early a.m. Eastern time, like 4 a.m. or 4:30. You have to double check your economic calendar for that, wherever you're located. We also have for Canada, gross domestic product. Okay, no one cares. On the 30th, also, Fed Chairman Powell speaks again. Like we haven't had enough of this guy. So again, that can cause an expansion, like just a random price expansion. Or he may say nothing in particular and the market will just kind of gyrate around and go nowhere, right? So it's important to know that the guy is speaking, because if he says something that the market wasn't expecting about interest rates or the Fed's schedule on their interest rates and blah, 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 then he can spike the dollar, and if the dollar spikes, you're going to see movement all over the place, okay? The pound, the euro, the stock market, okay? Even Bitcoin can be affected. When we had that CPI report a couple of weeks ago, Bitcoin actually was affected by it, at least coincidentally. Now, so that's tomorrow. Also on the 30th, we have for Australia, GDP. Okay, no one cares about that. On 12/1, German retail sales. These are not big market moving numbers. We also have for the British pound, Governor Bailey's speech. Unless you're in the pound or a pound cross, it's not, again, no big deal. Now, also on the 1st, we have ADP employment change and the ISM manufacturing PMI. The ADP number is often like a prelude or an early look at the NFP, okay, which comes out the next day. So that can have somewhat of an effect. You just have to depends on what type of stock you're trading, or it could have an effect on the S&P if there's anything unusual in the report. Most of these reports usually come out neutral, like no one cares, they don't have much of an effect. Okay, now I'm going to skip a few of these. What do you have? Australia trade balance, okay, no one cares. Europe retail sales, this is all that's on the 3rd, no one cares. Canada net change employment, no one cares. Now we have on the 3rd, which is Friday, non-farm payrolls, okay? That's the most important scheduled economic number we get each month. It's usually the first Friday of each month, non-farm payrolls. So if there are any surprises in there, again, it can affect things. Why is it important to know this? Because we're not going to trade these numbers. It's because if you're in something, you may have to manage your risk beforehand, or the market may start acting in a strange way going into the number. right? That type of thing. So that's why it's important to be aware of these things. Or maybe you're getting a buy signal or a sell signal in something right before the number, which in like that, if you're not in a trade, that would be an opportunity to avoid the signal, because you don't want to take a signal going into that report, which can have a serious random effect on the market very quickly, right? That's why it's important to be aware of those numbers. All right, so that's it. So we have a couple of Powell speeches. I mean, the guy is speaking right now, and we have ADP and NFP this week. All right, so again, some notable reports. Now, let's talk about Bitcoin. So, I had Thursday off, and so I wasn't on there. We talked about this over the Monday before, right? And when we were talking about Bitcoin back then, we were fooling around in this area right here, okay? And Bitcoin was trying to find support around that 57K area. Now, I wrote a TradingView report. I wrote an analysis that I published yesterday, and the title of it was Testing 50K Support, right? And at the time, Bitcoin was here. Now, I wrote in that analysis, if you read it, that if 53.5 was taken out, then we were likely to see that 50K support. Now, 53.5 was touched, and it reversed dramatically, right? And that takes us to where we are now. It's a pretty dramatic move. Now, this can be confusing. What I also wrote about in my report was the scenarios that I'd like to see and the initial move. This right here is the initial move. Now, because we had this bearish structure recently, all right, lower highs and lower lows, which is not a trend on this time frame. It's a corrective structure, right? It's just bearish momentum, temporary. That's the idea. People confuse this for a new trend, and that's not a trend. This is the trend, okay, right here. That's the trend, the larger time frame. When we zoom out, you can see the trend, right? That's the trend, higher lows and higher highs. This is just a corrective structure. Now, inside the corrective structure can be confusing. People that focus on small time frames are going to think that this is a bearish trend, right? In terms of the smaller time frame, sure, you can make that argument. But in the bigger time frame, it's going to mislead you, because you're going to think that this thing is going to continue to make lower lows. Meanwhile, you're going right into a support area. So that brings us to where we are now. We have an initial move. When we are in corrective structures, which we are still in, because this thing hasn't proven otherwise yet, what does it have to do to prove that it's no longer in the corrective structure? It needs to take out a resistance, because in a bearish structure, resistance levels are respected, right? So far, this area right here, so far, is being respected. Okay, that can change over the next few hours, maybe going into tomorrow. Maybe we get a breakout. Okay, maybe it does something like this. Then that would tell us that the structure is changing. Now, when it comes to the initial move, which is what we're facing here, this is the riskiest and the toughest place to get long, right? When you're in a bearish structure. This is all about context. When you have this situation, when you're inside of a bullish structure, right, it's a lot easier to deal with. You can take those risks. You get these higher lows and you get these single candle reversals, and there's nothing bearish like about this structure back here. It's just moving higher. All right. Even here, you can sort of make the argument, even though you have a lower high, it finds support right here at a predetermined support line. So you can. Those aggressive trades are more worthwhile in that scenario. Here, the aggressive trade is more risky because, again, this can turn into a failed high. This can turn into a bearish pin bar. You're right back inside this little resistance zone. So not a good place. What this normally does is it lures all the people in who have no patience. Okay, they think, I'm going to miss the next move. They think it's going to go to 100K because some fool on Facebook, some fool on YouTube shows up and says, well, it's going to 100,000 by next week, right? So people think they're missing out on the move now. But here's the thing. This is the initial move. So what I want to see, the more conservative thing to do is wait for the double bottom or wait for the higher low, okay? If Bitcoin can prove one of those levels, which is very typical in a corrective structure like we're in right now, then that's going to give you the low risk, higher probability location for a long. It's either this level or test of the low. So that's where you wait for, maybe you get like a tiny pullback to a higher low followed by some type of reversal candle. At that point, you can justify the risk and it's a higher low. Okay, so that would be worth taking. Now keep in mind, even after all that, it can still fail, right? That's why we have to manage our risk with a stop in the case of a swing trade. And we have to accept the loss if that's the way the market goes, okay? But that's why we're putting in the stop. But people that jump in too early, right? People that have been buying through this whole thing, it's just nothing but frustration and getting kicked out if you have a tight stop, and then you're not sure, so you take the stop away, and then when it does something like this, it may scare you out because someone's calling for a short and blah, 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 right? So it's easier to just let the market prove itself. And yeah, sure, you're not going to get the best price a lot of times, and you may miss the move, but missing a move doesn't cost money. That's the way you have to look at it. So over the next few days, either Bitcoin delivers the higher low or possible double bottom, maybe even a failed low. Maybe it retests the low, maybe it touches like the 52 or 51 area and then produces the reversal. That's possible. That's worthwhile. Okay, that's worth taking. Or maybe this thing breaks higher, clears the resistance, and then gives us a higher low at a much higher level, okay, like up here somewhere. That's possible, but it needs to clear that resistance first. Then you're looking for that pullback into whatever configuration it's going to give us. A tight higher low, a more pronounced higher low, or the double bottom, okay? So that's Bitcoin. Like I wrote in my report, this is not bearish. This situation is not bearish. But many people are fooled into thinking that this is. Meanwhile, you're going into an area, this entire area, right? The low 50s. Where is that? Let me put that on my chart here. From 50K, right? This entire area is a high probability reversal area for longs. It's just a matter of price proving it. But that's not an area for shorts, especially on this time frame. People that think they're going to swing trade Bitcoin and Bitcoin's going to go to 30K without any problem are very they like to take a lot of risk. Let's just put it that way, because there's a lot of buying activity just waiting to step in at lower prices. This thing is not bearish, okay? So that's what I have to say about that. So that's what we're watching over the next few days. Now, that's my Bitcoin analysis. Let me know if you have any questions about it. I'm going to go right into your questions right now. All right, so let's see. Nick, I'm an island boy, okay? That's not a question. Maybe those sound like lyrics to a song or something, but all right. Okay, let's see what else we got. I don't know about you, but looks both to me, daily and weekly chart, I don't see any buy signal. Well, there is no buy signal right now, and this inside bar, which typically this would be an arguable buy signal right there. This would be an extremely aggressive buy signal because you're buying into a low of a bearish structure. Now, some can argue and say, but that's a failed low relative to this low back here. You can argue that, but the thing is, those are tough arguments because that doesn't carry a lot of weight. If these two lows were closer to each other in terms of time, like this low over here and this low, then I can understand. Okay, but we have all of this bearish stuff going on in between. It's a much tougher trade to take. So I wouldn't call that as a long signal. It's an aggressive long, right? Now, so yeah, I agree. There's no long signal. Now let's take a look at the weekly. The weekly, you have the bullish pin bar that's established, but the high has to be taken out. The high is 59.5, right? So I wouldn't take the trade on the weekly. Hopefully it would give you a trade before that price because that's a pretty high price relative to where all the supports are, right? So this is not a buy signal yet on the weekly because the high needs to be taken out. It's potentially a buy signal, but this current candle, I mean, today's Monday, this thing's got the whole week to fool around and then close red. If this thing turns into a bearish inside bar on the weekly and takes out that low, that would be a new sell signal, right, on the weekly. So that's what you have to look out for, right? As far as like the buy signals not working or getting some sort of signal that basically negates the buy signal, that would be it. All right, so that's what you want to watch for on there. Let me see. Okay, right. So the pin bar is there. It's just not activated yet, and the current candle can give that back. I see that happen all the time. So let the pin bar prove itself. But like I said, I wouldn't get long on the weekly pin bar. That's too much risk. All right. Will this be a true reversal? So that's what we have to see. The reversal, the confirmation, like I said, will be the higher lower double bottom. All right. That's what I like to see. Kind of like this October reversal back here. Right. Got a nice higher low. Looking for something like that. All right. Now, because that shows a change in the structure. So let's see. Elizabeth wants to see Ethereum. Let's take a look. Ethereum. Where is my Ethereum chart? Okay, so now Ethereum typically has the same story as Bitcoin. Is this the right chart? No, I think it's this one here. I have a chart with like lines on it. Hold on, let me go back. Let me find it. I thought it was this one. No, maybe not. Hold on, because I have levels on the chart. Where's my Ethereum? Oh, here it is. Okay, hold on. So Ethereum typically has the same story. Okay. But the charts, they don't follow each other exactly like they used to. They used to be much closer. I guess because Ethereum is starting to really kind of take on its own purpose, right? It's not just a follower anymore. There's so much stuff being built on this platform. Anyway, so this chart, just generally looking at this thing, right? That's nothing but higher lows and higher highs. So the general perspective on this thing is it's bullish. Now, now we have this situation in here where it's consolidating a bit, right? Okay, so, and you say you're sitting on your hands, no problem. There's nothing wrong with that. In this type of situation, this was a much better looking buy signal on Ethereum compared to Bitcoin. It's the same pattern with that little mini inside bar that formed, well, I guess that's Saturday's candle right there. That's a much better situation than Bitcoin because this is a clear cut higher low relative to this structure, right? And this corrective structure that we had in Ethereum is not as pronounced as it was in Bitcoin. But anyway, I mean, I still go, just even after the fact, I probably would not call that because if I don't like what Bitcoin is doing, then I don't have much faith in anything else, you know, in this sector. Because if Bitcoin decides to break supports, no matter how good these look, they're still going to break too. So here's the thing. Right now, you get the same situation, right? These are not the best prices to be taking this long. This can easily consolidate and fail again and all that other stuff, right? So just like Bitcoin, what you want to see on Ethereum is you want to see the higher low or the double bottom or the failed low. All those scenarios can develop right here in this area. So if you get the pullback, okay, you want to be watching very carefully to see if it has a really hard time pulling back. The price area you want to be watching, 41.86. This thing's right now at 44.12. So it's got some room to play with there. If it can't find a higher low in that area, then you're looking at that, what, 42.80? What is this low here? 39.50, right? The 4,000 area, this area right here. Those are the areas you want to concentrate on. Now, if you're not getting the detail that you want to see, sometimes with a daily chart, you don't get... You know, the price may be trying to reverse, right? Like you may have a situation like this over here, but it doesn't look very good on a daily chart. That's where in those situations, if you need some more detail, it's okay to look at a 12-hour chart, right? You get some more granularity, and sometimes you could see something a little more clear, right? Like in this situation, failed low situation, that's a little more clear. Also, look at these tails on these candles, right? So that gives you some more detail. Now, people may say, well, why not go even smaller to an 8-hour or to a 4-hour? Because then you start asking for trouble with noise, and you get a lot of noise. So that's why I don't like to go much lower. When it comes to these markets that are open all day and like 7 days a week, there's a lot of data on the charts. So if I want more detail, 12-hour is appropriate. 8-hour is pushing it. Like if you really want to be aggressive, I wouldn't go any lower than 8-hour. Once you start going to 4-hour and 1 hour, that's not appropriate for these charts for swing trades. It's too noisy. Okay, those time frames like 1 hour and 30 minutes, they're more appropriate for stocks because stocks are only open 8 hours per day. These things are open, you know, all day and every day of the week. So it organizes the chart better for stocks. All right, just to be clear. All right, so that's my Ethereum analysis. Again, very similar to Bitcoin. Let me know if you have any more questions about that. But thank you for asking. Hey, Jess, hey, good to see you. Look at Bitcoin Weekly, right? We took a look at that. We saw the bullish pin bar on there, but it's not active yet. So the bar is closed. It's there, but now we have to see if it takes out that 59K area throughout the week. And here's the thing with that. I mean, let me just go back to that Bitcoin chart real quick. Here's the thing with that Bitcoin situation. You know, let's say it takes out the weekly high, right? This is the pin bar over here. Let's say it takes that out during the week. That in and of itself, while it can be argued it's a buy signal on the weekly chart, like I said before, it's very risky. So you can use something like that to at least let you know that any minor pullback after such a signal could turn into a buying opportunity, right? That's what that basically can turn into. So you can use that to just let you know that, yeah, the weekly has generated a buy signal at that point. So shorts should not even be a consideration if you short Bitcoin. All right, so XX, when to get back into B? So like I said, the higher low or the double bottom, I wouldn't touch it right now on this, because again, the initial leg is the most expensive and riskiest leg to get into. Okay, Alex, please look at 1 USD. All right, so let's see, 1 USDT. So Alex, what I'm going to do is ask, you have two symbols here, HNT, USDT. So ask HNT, put it in the chat again so I can get to it, because I want to make sure I get through everyone's questions. I don't want to answer two in one question. So just put the symbol again, and then I'll look at it. I should have time, so I'll take a look at it then. So here is Harmony, right? This is 1 ONE USDT. Let's take a look. So bigger picture, I mean, you have a nice bigger pictures chart here. Let's take a look at the weekly real quick on this thing. I mean, a lot of these altcoins, they look like this, right? A lot of them, they have this ridiculous move that's practically vertical, and now they're consolidating, right? A lot of them are doing this. Okay, fine. So what you have here is a consolidation, and you're in the middle, you're sort of in the middle of it. This is your range. This box on the chart here, that's your range. The bottom of this range is a higher low, okay? This right here is a higher low relative to your entire structure. As you can see, just the other day, I mean, look, it touched that level, if that's a true price right there, if that's not a bad tick. It gave you a bullish pin bar, and it took out the high of that pin bar today. So that's actually a buy signal, theoretically. But the thing is, that's a long pin bar, right? And the other thing is, look where you are by now. Look where you are. You're like sort of going into the middle of this range. So that's a tough trade to take, especially since you're in the consolidation. So let's look at this from the reward risk perspective. If you were to take this trade now, swing trade, which it's in an area where that's within reason, and you have the pin bar in place off the support. Let's see, the low of that is 23.38, okay? 23 cents and 38 whatever. So the current price is 26, so it's a good, what, 3 cents higher? Something like that, compared to this low. What was the low? 26.68 is, wait, oh, I'm getting these numbers right. The low is 23.38, the high is 27.06. Okay, so it's just a little higher than that high. We're at 26.96, all right. So the thing with something like this is your risk is the low, 23.38, okay? That's your risk defined at the moment. You need to make at least, what is that? I guess 3 cents or 3.5 cents, something like that. That's your risk. That would be this entire area right here if you got long right now. And you need to make that. You need to make that in this area here at minimum. So can it do that? Well, it's possible. You have your range high is up here, okay? And that's what, 32.88? So that 30 cent area is going to be where you're probably going to see a lot of selling come in up in this area. That's your range high. So your reward risk is basically just over 1 to 1, right? Maybe like 1.5 to 1 at that point. So for a swing trade, it makes sense. But the thing is, you know, Bitcoin's going to have to follow through most likely, unless this thing has news of its own. So that's what you're dealing with. If Bitcoin and Ethereum don't follow through with that initial leg that they're showing right now, or they pull back a bit, like they give you like a higher low or something, how is this thing going to behave? I mean, it doesn't really look exactly like the Bitcoin situation, but so I don't really know how to really express this in terms of a correlation to Bitcoin. But as we can see here, Bitcoin pulled back recently, and this thing's kind of like doing its own thing, right? Yeah. See, because Bitcoin's been pulling back for some time. The peak on Bitcoin was when? That was November 9, and this thing was doing better, right? Let's see, is this November 9 back here? Let's go back to November 9. It looks similar. So November 9th is, so Bitcoin peaked around here, in this area here, right? So since then, this thing's kind of had its own little move going on. So, maybe they're hyping this thing separately. So you have something like that going on in there. So that's how you define the reward risk if you're willing to take that chance. But in general, this structure is in your favor for longs. Now, the thing also to keep in mind is when that support level breaks, let's just say you buy this thing right now, right, based on that reward risk we talked about, and the next candle just turns to garbage and this thing closes below this line. When it does that, that's when you need to step away from it and let this thing settle, because once the higher low is established like this, once that's established, that's the structure. That means it should not make a lower low, it should make a higher low, right, and lead to a higher high. That's what should come next. Even if it's going to consolidate for a while, that low needs to stay intact. And if it breaks, that means you're probably in a broader consolidation, right? And there's no, when it comes to swing trades, you don't want to keep getting in and out of these things. Either you just hold on to it and hope it doesn't go to zero, which becomes inventory at that point, which again, I don't like to play that game with these lower tier coins. Okay, so I hope that helps. All right, shorts. Okay, so any thoughts on this market? Preparing for a big pump? Okay, well, so shorts, I don't really, to answer your question, I don't really think long term with these, right? I mean, I just see where the price action is now. I ask, are we at a support or a resistance, and how does that relate to the bigger picture, right? I'm just looking for a sense of context. So I can't really say if this is going to be a longer term pump or is it going to just lead to more selling. The market's just going to have to prove itself one way or the other. And in this situation, all I can see is the initial move. So I'll believe that we're going to work our way higher over the next month is if this thing can prove itself with some sort of reversal pattern, like the double bottom, like I talked about before, or the higher low, then I'll believe we're going higher. Until that pattern is compromised and until supports are taken out. But right now, it's like in between. This could be a lower high, or this can turn into a higher low, right? The market needs to let us know. So that's why I don't go into this with any opinions. I just go by what structure is the market showing me now. If I were to get involved somehow, what is my risk? And can I justify that risk? Those are the questions that I ask myself. I don't pay attention to anything else because no one knows anything. And there's so much hype and there's so much nonsense in this business, just as far as like people's opinions and entertainment and all kinds of other stuff like that they're putting out there. It's just like no wonder why everyone's confused. So I just let the market tell me what it wants to do. And when it changes, I adjust. Okay, so good question. All right, let's see. Hey, Shervin. Okay, Mr. Plow, could you look at TRX? Sure. Oh, from Switzerland. All right. Thanks for joining us from Switzerland. TRX USD. All right, so let's see what we got here. Tron. I remember when this one used to get all the hype. I guess it doesn't get as much hype as it used to. 1 week. Let's take up the weekly chart. When I haven't looked at these coins in a while, I like to resort to the weekly chart because I want to see where it is relative to the bigger picture. Okay, and what kind of levels we're looking at here. Tron doesn't look good. All right, we have this resistance right here. It's a failed high on the weekly. Now keep in mind, Bitcoin made new all-time highs recently, right? 69K or whatever with a recent peak November 9th. Most of these altcoins, if you notice, are nowhere near their all-time highs. This is not an all-time high. It's just an attempt at a higher high, and it got rejected right away. So that's a sign of relative weakness right off the bat. So let's go back to our daily chart. So Tron is trying, it's trying to work its way off of a support right here. You can argue double bottom, but this structure is not that good, okay? Because again, you're competing now with this failed high situation. And if Bitcoin and Ethereum can't keep it going, this thing is poised to break lower because there's no real buying going on here. That's what it's telling us, right? You want to see a good looking chart. I mean, here, let me just see it. Let's see if this chart still looks good. AVAX, USDT, that's a good looking chart right there. You see this chart? Tron doesn't look like this. This is what Tron should look like. I mean, look at this on a weekly. I mean, look at that. I mean, it's ridiculously vertical, but that's a strong chart. Nice clear-cut higher lows and higher highs. And look, it's got a higher low established, and it looks like it's going for the higher high. Look at this bullish pin bar yesterday, right? That's actually a buy signal in this thing. I show you this chart to compare, right? What can we argue looks good and what doesn't look good, right? You have to look at them. This is a good-looking chart. So something like Tron, I'm showing you to illustrate the difference. I wouldn't go near this thing. Okay, it looks like garbage compared. Now, if you're in this, if you're in it, what you want to watch for are support breaks, right? If you're in it hoping, because a lot of people, they buy these things and they hope because that's all you can do with these, and it's not a good strategy. But if this thing starts breaking these supports, especially this one over here, which is what, 8 cents basically, right? The low 8-cent area, then I would stay away. I would take the loss if you have some, because that would basically send out a red flag that these things are money's coming out of these things at that point. There's a lot of altcoins that have a very similar situation. They all have these supports, these recent supports from October, from that October bottom. And if that level breaks, you know, that's not going to be good for these things. Okay, I'm not saying it's going to break. The question is, does it break? And if it breaks, that's when you have to make adjustments. All right, let's take a look at, you ever see this thing, the total market cap? It looks just like the Bitcoin chart, right? So as long as this thing keeps holding and this thing keeps going, a lot of these altcoins will probably just sit around, even if they're relatively weak. But when this thing starts breaking major supports, just like Bitcoin, because it looks just like the chart, when this thing starts breaking, that's probably when you're going to see all these altcoins start breaking those major support levels. All right, and that's when you're going to want to step aside and let them do what they have to do. And we'll see at some point, we'll see when they find stability again. And that's when you want to start taking risks with them again. We're not at that point yet, but that's the plan you want to have. Okay. Shervin, oh, from Vancouver, cool. Thanks for joining. Oh yeah, by the way, people are putting in where they're from. I always forget to mention, if you want to share what country or what city you're from, that's always a fun fact. I'm streaming from the greater New York City area or northern New Jersey. That's where I get my accent from. Okay, in case you weren't sure, when I say like talk, we say talk here, not talk, we say talk. All right, anyway. What else we got here? Okay, so from Vienna, wow, Shen, good to see you. All the way from Vienna. Thanks for joining again. Thanks for stopping by. Nita. Okay, Mana USD. Let's take a look. Mana USD. I haven't looked at this one in a while. Okay, it's not a bad looking chart right off the bat. Let's take a look at the weekly. Wow. All right, so obviously there was something going on in that one. Probably hype and news, because you know how these things go. How much is this thing? It's $5, right? All right, and this thing's on Coinbase. All right. So here's the thing. Right now, all right, you have this test. Look at the price action around this area here. Look at that. Notice that. All right, what's it doing? It's hesitating around this previous peak, right? That's what this line represents. The line that I drew there, it's the previous peak. And it's gyrating around there. So not a good place to be buying this thing. It's a very vulnerable area. So what you want to look for, you want to identify supports in advance. So if you're in it, hopefully you've taken some profit if you're in it from a good price. If you're not in it and you're looking to get in, let's look at the support levels. So we want to look at first at old resistances. We can argue there's one around there, and there's one over here, and it touched it recently. Okay, this would have been an aggressive trade. I still would have a hard time taking something like this because this can turn into a failed high, which is what it's trying to do. I don't like that failed high situation. You have to get out of those right away, and they require a lot of babysitting, and you know all the whole story. So I would be looking for the next this support, not this one, right? Not this one, unless it gives you a clear signal and you want to go for it. Okay, but this is the problem you have to watch out for, what it's doing right now, because momentum should not produce red candles, bullish momentum. It should be producing green candles. Now this candle's not closed, but it requires a lot of maintenance. You got to watch it. You may get stopped out. You're going to have to get back in if it holds, all that stuff, okay? So this would be a better level somewhere around here if it can retest that, $3.52. So that's what you want to keep an eye out for, okay? You can put that in your notes or whatever, and if it gets there, that's when you want to look for that reversal, right? The bullish reversal. Now, obviously, this thing is doing its own thing because Bitcoin does not look like this, right, recently. So that tells me that this is probably more news or hype driven. So that's something to keep in mind as well. And it's better, that's why it's better to wait for those support levels and see if you can get some sort of reversal there. At that time, you should be able to measure risk clearly. If you can't or you're unsure, then just don't do it. Remember, a lot of these coins are junk. They are highly speculative. They're like penny stocks. They're good for getting in and out for the short term if you want to just try to make something quick, relatively quick, meaning you're in it for a few days, maybe you're in it for a few weeks, that kind of thing. But as far as long-term investments, I think people are nuts with these things because they don't realize that most of them are going to go nowhere or probably to zero. They don't realize they weren't active 20 years ago when the dot-coms were doing the same thing. So they don't realize that when there's 8,000 coins available, most of them are going to go nowhere. So how do you know which one is going to be a winner? You don't, right? It's random. So I don't have much faith in the sector in that sense, right? It's a matter of just, if you're looking for investing, I'm talking about investing now, not trading, then it's usually a good idea to stick to the leaders, stick to the ones that are proven, right? The top tier, first tier, second tier. When I see like these things, it's like, all right, penny stock. That's how you have to think of it. I think it's safer to think of it that way because it won't let any outrageous expectations enter your mind. And that's what goes on with these things. There's so much of that. By the way, I haven't seen too many millionaire titles on YouTube. I guess people got tired of it, or the producers realized these things are pulling back, so there's no need for millionaire titles. They only put those out at the top of the market. All right, anyway, so thanks for asking about Mana. Certainly a good one for the radar. All right, Adrian, hey, thanks for stopping by. Shervin wants to see oil. Oil's had a very interesting move the other day. Look at that. So I watch oil carefully, and oil, I guess there was some news that something about, I don't know, I don't pay attention to news. I heard from someone that said there was something said about selling our strategic oil reserve or some kind of nonsense like that. I don't know if that's true, but oil lost $10. $10 in oil in one day. That's a huge move for oil in one day, okay? So what's going on with this thing? Well, okay, news aside, I'm only interested in levels and measuring reward risk. You definitely have a support here, okay? Old resistance area, and it's likely to act as a support. So as far as thinking long for oil, yeah, that makes sense to be thinking long, but taking a long is another story. So we have a level of interest when you have a steep sell-off like this, right? I mean, look at today's candle. Look at the range on today's candle. So you had all the people buying the bounce, right? Look at that. Thinking, oh, oil found the bottom. Well, hopefully hopefully you didn't buy at the top of that little pin bar situation. I have to make that really big. You see that? So, and it gave it back. So that's not good as far as being long goes. Definitely not good. So what you want to see in a situation like this, after a steep pullback, because that momentum is still bearish, this thing needs to stabilize. So just like Bitcoin, right? It's the same thing I'm looking for in Bitcoin. I want to see stability develop in this area. stability in the form of a double bottom, a higher low, something that tells me that this bearish momentum is coming off, is shrinking. I don't want to get stuck in something that's just going to be pure bearish. Right now, let me give you an example here. If you look back here, I mean, look at this initial move coming out of a bearish structure. See, this is a bearish structure. Now, notice this is a sharp move, and eventually that move led to taking out this resistance. You see that? And then eventually that led to a higher low. There was a lot of waiting to get involved. There was a lot of waiting before that higher low proved itself and then started to make higher highs. Okay? So sometimes that's what you have to do. You have to wait that out if you're looking for a more conservative trade. People that shorted into that got hammered, and people that were aggressive enough to take a long in that, yeah, it could have worked out. But how many times do those initial moves don't work out? Like, what if you bought into here thinking, oh yeah, I got the bottom of oil, it's a higher low and blah 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 blah, and then this is what it does to you, right? It gets hammered. So that's why even if you get everything lining up the way you want, you must have some sort of risk control in the form of a stop. When it comes to swing trades, stops are appropriate. But if it's another type of trade like inventory, which oil is usually not a good idea for inventory unless you have a large account, or if you're using micros like on the CFD or something, these are more short-term oriented type trades. So a stop loss order is appropriate. All right, so anyway, I like oil as a long, just not at the moment. Okay, I like the location. There's no reason to go long right now. And another thing about oil, especially for short term, if this current candle, this inside bar, is taken out, the low is taken out, that means more bearish momentum. All right, so that's an aggressive short trade at that point. Maybe it's got some room to go lower, but you have to really monitor that, because this thing, you're shorting into a support area. So maybe momentum follows through a bit, but it's very likely to reverse hard in your face again, so you have to be on top of that. Okay? That's more appropriate for day trades, by the way. So thanks for asking about oil. Okay, hey, Farhat, can you tell me levels of support? I would like to build my inventory on FMTA and Real M. Okay, no problem. Yeah, thank you, you too. All right, so let's take out I'm going to start with FMTA. Also, Farhat, I'm going to answer the first one. For the second one, just re-put it in the chat so that I don't forget, and I'll go back to it because I want to try to get to everyone's questions. So let's start with FMTA. Is that right? Okay, hold on. Let me go back here. What was that symbol? FMTA USDT. FMTA. Oh, I don't have. I have wrapped in Ethereum. Okay, on Uniswap. That's all I got. Let's take a look. I don't know if that's the correct chart. That's definitely not a good-looking chart. Let me see. Is that the right chart? Fundamenta wrapped in Ether. Okay, yeah. And you're asking about inventory? All right, so inventory. Okay, man, where was this thing? All right, I don't know. This is an ugly chart. So this is one of those things. What is this, like a fraction of a penny? Oh, yeah. This is one of those things you throw in like $100. About what kind of inventory you're going to build on this thing? You throw in $100 and you just hope for the best. You hope it doesn't go to, hope it doesn't go into further sub penny territory or whatever. I mean, I don't know what to tell you on this thing. Certainly not a good looking chart. You just buy some, and a chart's not going to really help you here. So I mean, I could tell you a level if this is the correct chart, but it doesn't really mean anything, right? You have a support right here at 00105. 208, whatever that is. You can see that. I'll draw a little line there. That's your support right in that area. But it doesn't really mean anything with such a sporadic chart, and just this thing's just pushing lower. I don't know what to tell you on that one. All right, let me talk about Real M, because there's not much to say about FMTA. Real M. There's no Real M either. Let's see. Another one wrapped in Ethereum. Is that it? Real M. That looks like... Okay, so this chart at least has a little better structure to it. So in this situation, all right, let's see. You have this this move right here, that tells me there was some kind of news. Your support is right in this area here. That's your support on this thing. 00015. All right. Yeah. I don't like these charts that are like sub a penny. The charts are usually not very reliable. You have this failed high situation going on. Current candle is trying to be a long. You can argue that there's a higher low over here, but these things are just all over the place, right? And obviously it's news driven and hype driven. So you're looking for support, that's your support, right? In this lower area. Perhaps you can find a higher low somewhere in here. This thing's probably not going to follow Bitcoin very closely or whatever, because it looks like it's being driven on its own whatever. So again, with these building inventory, you got to be very careful because most of these are worthless. And if you manage to get a profit out of them, great. Take what you can. But I would not really, or if you really just want to have like a long-term view and be like, all right, look, this is a 5-year hold for me. If you want to play that game, then again, I think it's best to throw in a small amount of money that if it goes to whatever, zero, you don't care. If it's $100, $200, you can't look back and say, oh, if I just invested $5,000, it would have been worth $1 million today. Right, but what about all the ones that don't do that? Okay, you don't know. So, and I don't care how great the project is. I don't care how amazing the technology is, and they got the best developers in the world. They all say that. So, again, that's the way you have to look at it. Okay, like I don't want to discourage you. Maybe you know something that we don't know. Maybe you're an insider. But actually, if you were an insider, you wouldn't be here asking me these questions. But that's the way you have to think of these. Okay, this is not like a high quality stock of any kind. It's not like they're putting man on Mars or anything that's very very important and dramatic. They just whatever. There's some nonsense coin, right? Maybe it's NFT. I don't know what it is. All right. Anyway, so that's Real M. Ing. Okay, so VeChain and XRP. All right, Ing. So I'm going to go over one of those. Again, put it in the chat again. Repeat it in the chat. So here's VeChain. All right, so you can repeat XRP. I want to try to answer everyone's questions. Now, VeChain, now look at this thing, right? Bigger picture, this is not a bad location. Look at the pin bar from yesterday, okay? Bullish pin bar close, took out the high. You have a buy signal in this thing. Now, VeChain, I've always had a problem with VeChain relative to like Bitcoin. Look at this. This is the weekly chart here. And just like that other coin we looked at earlier, right? A lot of them are in this situation where they have these failed highs. They have these weekly pin bars and failed highs. So they're very risky in that regard. You have a buy signal here. So if you're going to take a chance with it, okay, at least this is a level that makes sense. You're not buying into a resistance here. You're buying into, if anything, a possible support. So you have that going with you, okay? How far this thing goes, though, is another story because they're all acting relatively weak. They're nowhere near their all-time highs. So if you buy some VeChain, the key is you need to start taking profit based on how much you've risked, okay? So if you use the pin bar as your reference for risk, if this is your reference of risk right there, the low of that pin bar is basically 10.5 cents, all right? Or we'll say 104, but 10.5 cents. And you're risking about 2 cents because you'd be buying this thing around 12 cents, right? So you need to make at least 2 cents to justify your risk. That's 1 to 1. In a more ideal scenario, you're making more than 1 to 1. So if this thing starts to push back into the midpoint of its range or starts to work toward its high, you should be taking something off the table and justifying your risk. At that point, if you want to let it ride, if it's just showing nothing but bullish candles and everyone's throwing a party again and VeChain is going to be the next Bitcoin and all that other nonsense, sure, you let it run. So you at least have that opportunity here. But if this thing turns the other way and we get a few red candles over the following week and this thing takes out that low, it would be a good idea to take the stop and take the loss as small as possible, right? Take the loss as quickly as possible. The reason why is if these things start breaking, then they have a long way to pull back. And these things have been showing relative weakness. They're not showing relative strength. So you have to keep that in mind, All right, so thanks for asking about VeChain. Again, ask me about XRP again in the chat. Okay, no problem, Travel. Sesame, Josef from Czech Republic, welcome. Can you give your opinion on Wax? And okay, so I'll do Wax BTC is a cross pair. It's usually doesn't really make a difference. So I'll take a look at Wax USD. Let's see, what is that? Let's take a look at this situation here. All right, so that's a good looking chart. All right, I see higher lows and higher highs. So general trend is arguably bullish. Looks kind of like AVAX, okay? And they rhyme too. Let's take a look at the weekly chart. Yeah, look, vertical. So look at these weekly candles though, right? These weekly candles are a little concerning because it has a long way to pull back, right? Still a risky area in general. Now, if you're interested in something like this, first of all, if you're long, hopefully you've taken something off the table because this would certainly call for locking in something. Your support is right around here. That's your first real support. That's around 44 cents. You do have a support in this area here because price is drawing some tails. You see these long tails on the candles? Price is trying to find support there. Someone is buying there, okay, or people are buying there. So you have that as a reference point as well. Price right now is just above that. So if you're interested in a long or swing trade long, it would probably make sense to wait to see if you get a retest of this area here, okay? Or the more aggressive thing is you have an inside bar. This is not really an inside bar. It's almost an inside bar. But if the next candle takes out the high of this candle, you can argue that there's a buy signal. All right, at that point, you're taking a lot more risk though, because at that point you'd be buying in the middle of the range, and you have to hope that momentum follows through and takes you back to the high of the range. That's why I look with these, when they're fooling around near resistances and they're generating buy signals near resistances, I don't like them at all because there's so much potential for them to fail. Right? People look at, oh no, but you're so pessimistic, they say to me. Oh, there's so much room for this thing to run. No, there's a lot of room for this thing to fail. And the reason is because people have sold here before, right? That's what that is. And Bitcoin is not exactly doing its best right now, right? So those will eventually, even though these coins, some of them are doing their own thing based on whatever hype they're marketing. Because remember, marketing is what drives these coins, not fundamentals. Marketing drives these coins. So when that party's over, these things they're in locations where they're very vulnerable. That's why I don't like that breakout idea. Okay. Now the general chart is bullish. So a breakout attempt makes sense, and if you want to go for that, okay, the chart is with you. You just have to make sure that you're very on top of it as far as babysitting it, making sure your risk is very well defined, because if it breaks, you're going to be in this situation where all of them break, okay? Because if this thing breaks, it's probably the whole sector is going to break, and you don't want to get stuck at the mercy of the market. That's why I warn. That's what I warn about with these things. Like I said, I don't want to discourage new longs, but just keep that in mind. I want you to be realistic and I want you to be rational about it. I don't want you to get carried away with these dreams that people sell you on YouTube and on Instagram and all this other nonsense, okay? Because that's all these are dreams. And just because a few people made some money, a year ago, that was like a lottery ticket. You probably could do better buying a lottery ticket. At least it'll cost you a lot less if you're wrong about the lottery ticket. All right. Anyway, so that's Wax USD. So generally not bad. Just everything else I said. And BTC again, it's just crossed against. That's not going to really make a difference, right? I mean BTC, it's the same chart. Okay. So Mike, could you check out energy stock, OZSC? Okay, energy stock. Let's take a look. OZSC, what's the story here? This one sounds familiar. Have we looked at this before? Let's take a look at the weekly. So, oh yeah, look at this. When I see stocks that do this, right, when they have this ridiculous nonsense in them, right, that's hype. That's just hype. So that kind of reminds me of GameStop. I'm not too crazy about those after the fact. Now, since then, it's been consolidating and it's out of play. Okay, and it's had this recent breakout attempt, all right? So you have that going for you, right? There's the breakout attempt right there. These consolidation breakouts can be profitable if they follow through. And look what happened here. It tried and it gave it back right away. All right, which means whatever, they got the hype going again. I think we talked about this because I remember these tails. I remember looking at these tails, like this one over here, right? These breakout attempts that keep failing, right? People are buying into them and they're getting stuck in them, right? That's what's going on. So the one who's making money is the one who's hyping these things and saying, "Oh, buy this thing now. You're getting in at the best price. Buy it before it goes to 10 million." Right? So they tell it to their chat room, they all buy it, and then this guy gets out. Right? That's what goes on with these things. Anyway, so as far as location now, look, price is trying to fool around at that breakout level. There's really nothing going on here as far as anything compelling. You're going back into the range. So if you want to take a chance with something like this, again, probably small shares make sense, because whenever you get a failure, you have to understand what's going on with the failure. A lot of people are long and they get stuck in this thing, okay? So if it starts to test lower prices, people start getting margined out, or they get scared out, right? They're like, "Oh, I can't take it anymore." And they all bang it out, and that leads to a lot of more bearish momentum. So that's why this area is not a great area. You might as well wait to see if you get a double bottom. That would be the best area, because that's when everyone starts banging it out. And it makes the lower low, so people have all their stops over there and all that other stuff. That would be the best place to look for something like this, right? If this was a better quality stock, I would make the higher low argument. But this is a pumper and someone just dumping shares, unloading shares on people. That's what this pattern looks like. So that's why you're better off waiting for a more extreme level, okay, on something like this, because it's so speculative. Does that make sense? So thanks for asking about OZSC. Hey, Kim. Cardano. My investment. Oh, okay. Let's take a look. In a $2 on average. Okay. So yeah, Cardano, another infamously hyped coin. Cardano is going to be 50x by next week. How many times have I seen that title on YouTube videos? Anyway, so Cardano broke. We talked about this often, right? I remember we talked about this a lot. Like, I still have the lines on my chart. This level, right? That was at 212 level. I think that was basically the $2 area. We talked about it, and it broke that. It broke the consolidation. That's not what it should do. Now, this example here. What's your name, Mike? You mentioned OZSC. You see this situation right here? That was a failed breakout, sucked in a lot of longs. They all thought Cardano was going to go to $1 million at that point, and look where it is now. That's what I'm talking about with OZSC, okay? The same type of situation. So let's talk about where this thing is now. You're at this support level, Kim, okay? So, and you touch the support. You got the bullish pin bar. So the support is active. It's there. Someone stepped in, so you have that going for you, this old resistance. So you are in at or let's see, what you said you're in? You said at $2 on the average. Okay. And this thing's at 160. Ooh. And the low is 155. Okay. So, I mean, yeah, here's what you need to happen here. And again, this one's obviously reacting to that Bitcoin situation, right? Because Bitcoin had to pull back and this and that. Bitcoin showed us the bearish structure. This is the initial move off the support, okay? And again, this thing is at, what, 161 today? You're in a tough spot because this is the initial move, and what I'd be looking for on this, if I was going to look for a new long, is I'd be looking for the higher low or the double bottom, just like I described with Bitcoin and Ethereum, which means this thing has to pull back or is likely to pull back off of this initial move, which can be painful to watch if you are in from much higher prices. But that type of pullback would be welcome to someone that's looking to buy into this thing, right, to get that higher low or double bottom, because if it proves itself at those levels, those are the best prices that offer the best reward risk and a good probability off of that location, okay? That's why I warned people, like if it broke this consolidation, this range support, if it broke it, usually it's a good idea to take your losses so that you're not stuck in this situation, right? Because here's the thing. You can sit there and you can hope that this thing finds the double bottom or the higher low, and you'll be fine. This thing, if it can do that, working its way back to $2 is not unreasonable. Okay. Also, if you get that opportunity, it probably wouldn't be a bad idea to unload some in the middle of the range if you get that opportunity. But here's the other thing. If this thing attempts to test that low, right, for the pullback that everyone's going to be looking to buy, same with Bitcoin, right, and it breaks that support, that's not going to be pleasant. Okay, that would be a lower high followed by a lower low, and that means this thing is probably going to go much lower at that point. That's what the structure would be telling us. Whether it changes after that, no one knows, right? But that's what the structure is saying now. So it's a very tough situation to sit through when you're taking pain. When you're outside of the market waiting, it's easy. Oh, look, I got the higher low. Okay, I'm going to buy it, right? And there's no pain involved. But when you're taking pain, these situations, it can really play with your head. So that's what you have to watch out for. In this type of situation, one thing you can consider, since it sounds to me like you have inventory rather than a swing trade, is if it breaks the support and starts to really show you ugly prices, maybe a good thing to do would be to lighten up on the position. Maybe you don't have to get rid of the whole thing, but lighten up, reduce your exposure, right? And then all you can do is hope that this thing finds stability and you can buy back whatever you got out of, right? Whatever you took the loss of, then you can add back to that inventory at much better prices. Again, there was a lot of high hopes for Cardano and all that other nonsense. And as you can see, I warned people about these. Now, I'm not going to sit and say, oh, see, I told you I was right. But what I warned people about is the risk and the amount of hype that I observed at the height. Okay, when I see countless video titles promising you that you're going to be a millionaire and even billionaire with these nonsense garbage coins, these aren't even like real investable assets. These are not even real assets. They're speculative, like penny stocks. Okay, so when I see video after video promising that you're going to be a millionaire, that's a huge red flag. And since I've seen all those, and since I've seen the Bitcoin billboards, like around my area here, Bitcoin, buy Bitcoin on a billboard, that was the top, okay? And those started to appear a couple of weeks, maybe 3-4 weeks before that peak at 69K. That's why I warn people. No one pays attention to those contrarian signs, but there's a reason why that occurs. And that's because when something is obvious, that means all the people that were going to buy have bought, and there's no one left to buy. That's what that means, and that's the situation that these things are caught in. So it puts you in a very vulnerable position if these things go out of season and they start breaking supports. Now you're in from a bad price, and all you do is keep losing, right? And it just gets worse, and either you get margined out or you get scared out at the bottom. So that's why I always warn people: you're better off being out of the market, waiting for these hammer opportunities where everything just gets hammered and everyone gets pushed out. And it may take 6 months, but you're taking a lot less risk and you're putting your money to work in more effective ways at better prices, right? So anyway, that's why patience is so important. But I hope that answers your question. Let's move on here. So that was Cardano. Let me see here. Elizabeth, okay, I caved and paid to get 8 and 12. Oh, okay. You should have used my affiliate link. I'm joking. I don't have an affiliate link for. They want me to push it, but I'm really slow with that stuff. Yeah, okay. TradingView is a good platform. Okay, I mean I use them for a lot of my analysis and a lot of. They have a lot of great resources on the platform. There's a lot of things that I don't agree with and I don't like, but hey, they're running a business, But as far as like chart flexibility and all kinds of other stuff, I wouldn't say that was a bad purchase. TradingView is certainly a helpful tool in many ways if you know how to use it, in the most efficient way, let's say. Okay. So X, I'm curious. You said once in your streams that you don't trade Ethereum. Can you tell me why? Well, it's just, X, it's just really a matter of convenience. I like Bitcoin better. It's just a personal preference. I don't have anything against Ethereum. Ethereum moves well. It's a great instrument for swing trades and all that other stuff. It's just a matter of I'm just more familiar and more used to Bitcoin. It's the same movement basically. So that's all. There's really I don't have any scientific or any rational reason. I just don't, it's just not convenient for me. I just prefer Bitcoin. So yeah, but I view them basically as the same thing. Samir from India. Hey, well, 2 a.m. Wow, Samir is one of those troopers. Thanks for stopping by, Samir. I got people from all over the world here. I know in Eastern Europe it's like 10 or something like that in the evening. But the guys really far east, you guys are really troopers to be listening to me at 2 a.m. Sometimes we get like people from Australia. It's like 4 a.m. over there. I'm like, man, you guys are crazy. Listening to me at 4 a.m.? I wouldn't listen to me at 4 a.m. All right. So anyway, thanks for stopping by, Samir. It's very nice to see you. Okay, Thomas. Oh, okay, cool. No problem. Samir, do you think BTC is going to behave in the same way? That's a good question. Do I think it will behave in the same way? I have no idea, right? You can't think like that with these things. It's just going to do what it's going to do. We have to have a passive mindset, right? So at the moment, like I said, it's got an initial leg, and that's a starting point, but a very tough spot when it comes to risk. Right, for swing trades. That's why I say I want to see a higher low or double bottom. Why? Because I can measure risk, and I know that if a higher low develops in an area where I'm anticipating a higher low, that gives me a much better chance that this thing is going to follow with a higher high. Now, will it go back to 69K? I don't know. I don't have any opinion because I let the market tell me what it wants to do. If it wants to produce green bars after the higher low and work its way back up there, hey, that's what it wants to do. There's a chance it can do that, but I can't put a specific probability on that chance because I know markets are highly random. All right, so we want to isolate those opportunities where we can anticipate certain behaviors. That's when we start to remove some of the random nature, right? Like if I'm expecting buying in a certain area, and then certain things start to confirm that buying is taking place, then it's more reliable than just buying at any random price, if that makes sense. Okay, so accepting that these markets are random or mostly random is very important in this. People go into this thinking that markets are predictable. They're not on the long run. No one knows anything. Unless you're an insider and you have inside information, there's no way to know because some random piece of news can come out. Right? Elon Musk can come out and say, hey, I'm not going to accept Bitcoin ever again. I'm selling all of my Bitcoin. Right? And Bitcoin will go to zero. No one saw that coming. Okay? Or he may come out and say, oh, we're going to have Bitcoin as the official currency on Mars once we get over there. You like my Elon Musk impression? He probably wouldn't appreciate it. But anyway, you get the idea? So that's why no one knows. So I hope that answers your question. All right, let me see what else we got here. Michelle, hey Michelle, buongiorno from Italy. I appreciate that, thank you. What do you think we will find the CME gap? Oh, okay, Samir. So do you think we will find the CME gap before reaching all-time high? I don't go by that, the CME gap. I know that with the futures over at the CME, there's a lot of talk of the gap, and I understand. I think a lot of that is coincidence. So Samir, like I tell other people when they ask me about other tools or other methods to analyze the price action, I resort to basically I have 6 steps. All right, I don't go, as you can see, I don't mention them specifically here, but there are 6 things that I basically look at, and I don't really look beyond those things because they give me enough information. People have asked me about the Bitcoin long short thing, the Bitcoin dominance thing, the total market cap thing, all that nonsense, right? And I think it's just unnecessary. I have my levels, I have my price structures, I have my price action, and that will tell me one thing, what the risk is and a loose probability of am I going on the right side of this thing or not, right? And that really has to do with trend, because as a retail trader, there's not much that's in our favor in general, okay? The retail trader, which is all of us, The retail trader is meant to basically provide profit for the institutional traders, professional money managers, all those people, right? We basically help them get in and out of their positions. That is what they use us for. We also make brokers rich. We also make Forex brokers rich and what do you call those things? The exchanges like Coinbase, we make them rich too with all the fees that we pay. Binance, you see their platform? It's like a slot machine. So they want us to trade, right? And the more we trade, the more likely we are to lose. And there's a lot of reasons for that. But my point is, there's very little. We have no statistical advantage, just generally. So you notice, they're very happy to give us all these tools. Hey, look at this oscillator. Hey, look at this tool. Hey, look at that tool. Oh, I'm going to show you a secret over here. Right? They're so happy to give us this stuff. Why? Because it will stimulate us to trade. They know it's random. They know there's no advantage. So if you want to trade like a professional, like an algo trader, right? Like someone that actually can prove a mathematical advantage, a statistical advantage, then we basically trade with 50-50 all the time. So the only way to get beyond that is really with our risk management and understanding where our advantages are as a retail trader. And that is trend. After all the stuff that I've worked with and tried and experimented with, I've lost a lot of money on a lot of nonsense that I was basically misled to believe. I realized that most of this stuff, like there's nothing in our favor, but markets do trend. That's a truth, right? We all see trends. They're there, okay? And they're on other time frames. But so when you start to organize this information and you work on that idea, then you start to see how you can isolate situations where things are more in your favor, okay? Or statistical advantage, which I can't prove with a number. I can't say, well, I have a 95% chance of blah, blah, blah. I'm not a math person. You know, I'm not a statistics major. So anyway, I hope that answers your question. I could rant on that all day. All right, let me see what else we got here. Back to the questions. Maskeya. Okay. Oh, cool. Well, thanks for joining. Straight to the point. I like, oh, cool. Indonesia. Oh, cool. Welcome. Right. Well, I appreciate you say that. No blah, blah, blah. I try not to do blah, 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 right? No BS here. I like to keep it, to the point and provide value. I want you to come away with levels that you can work with and understanding risk, okay? And not coming out with some kind of crazy dream, like I was saying earlier, like, oh, I'm going to be a millionaire by next week. I'm going to go buy a new car, or something, because Cardano is going to be at $10, this guy said, right? So none of that here. Okay, no problem, Shervin. Michelle, EXRD. All right, let's take a look. EX. Sometimes I go on rants, though, but people seem to find that entertaining. I'm glad, because not too many people like to listen to me rant. Not around here, anyway. All right, so let me see what we got. Is this the right symbol? EXRD. Okay, this looks like it. Let's take a look, Michelle. Not a bad chart from the start. I want to see a weekly chart here for a moment. Okay, so certainly a hype coin. That's a hype coin when it's vertical like that. Now, let's look at levels, all right? We got a support right there. We also have a support over here, but that's, that was broken, that was cleared a long time ago as far as resistance goes. You're probably not going to test that anytime soon. So this is an interesting chart. This is what I like about this. It looks like it's doing its own thing. This doesn't look like Bitcoin. It doesn't look like Ethereum. So that tells me that most likely this is being driven by something else. Okay, fine. That's fine. You have a bullish pin bar right there, and it took out the high. Nice candle that you have formed right now. So that's a buy signal off of a broader, higher low, and you have like a double bottom situation here, failed low. A lot of reasons to take this long. This is a nice looking long as far as the swing trade goes. I mean, if you bought the high of the previous candle, which was what, 41 cents? This thing right now is at 43 cents. Okay, so it's 2 cents. All right, you're getting a worse price, but there's a buy signal there. The risk, though, would have to be defined at this low, 34 cents. So you're looking probably at about 10 cents of risk. You need this thing to go for that new high. What is this high over here? 57 cents. So if it can even attempt to get to this area here, you could probably justify your risk. But I like the general formation. All right. So sometimes when you have these hype coins, right? I mean, this formation, what we're looking at here is an expression of the order flow. So even it doesn't matter what the fundamentals are, if there's going to be another wave of buying, right, that wave theoretically should take this thing to at least testing the high, okay? If it fails to do that, that's when you have to make adjustments, not sit there and hope. Like if it gets near there and starts giving you long tails and all that, you know, and you have some profit, you take it. Because if you would think that this thing is going to go to $10 because some fool on YouTube is hyping this thing, you know, that's when you can run into problems. So most important, know your risk, and that risk is defined at 34 cents. So this thing should not go there. If it goes there, it's no good. If it goes there, most likely it's going to test lower prices. That's the way you have to look at it. And if it goes there and then reverses, like it tricks you, it fakes out, and you get out, then it's okay to try to get back in if it reverses like right away. But theoretically, this thing should not break that support, okay? And in theory, it should at least attempt the high. That's higher low to higher high, all right? And that's consistent with this broader structure. Again, if this thing is being hyped, that would make sense. When the marketing team is you know, when the marketing effort is over, that's probably when you're going to see these things just stop. You know, stop with these nice looking charts. But that's certainly a nice looking chart. So thanks for bringing that up. You know, if you don't want to take that now, maybe you get another test of that range low. But that's what I see there on that chart. Samir, can you have a look at Dent? Okay, let me see here, Dent. All right. So I got a few more minutes. I got to wrap this up here shortly, but I'm going to try to get through these as many as I can. That's why I was asking people to repeat the symbol so that I can get through more symbols. So here's Dent. Let's take a look at a weekly chart. What's going on here? So look at this. All right. See, this is not such a good looking chart. Why not? Now, so in my stream today, we looked at a couple of good looking charts. This one has an all-time high, like way up here. Okay. Current prices have not even come close. This is a weekly chart. You have a double top established here. So just like some of those other coins, like VeChain and some of those other ones, they're relatively weak. So when Bitcoin was making its all-time highs, this thing should have been doing much better, right? So which leads me to believe that if Bitcoin goes out of season, something like this is probably going to just be painful. So with that being said, right, with that relative weakness in mind, let's see where we are on the smaller time frame. This is the daily chart. So you are at a support, right? Like many of these coins, they're fine. This actually looks very similar to VeChain. You're at a support level. You have a buy signal that's in place right now. You have a pin bar that was taken out yesterday, pin bar high at 0049, okay? And this thing currently right now is 0051. So you have a buy signal in play. Your risk would be defined by that pin bar low. When they're really cheap like this, like sub a penny, I'm not too crazy about these. I mean, this thing obviously can move, but you know, you just have to adjust accordingly. So you need this thing. If you take something like that, your risk is defined here. You need this thing to test at least somewhere around here and start taking money off the table, if it can do that. Keep in mind, there are a lot of coins that look like this, right? So if there's a failure, because like I said, Bitcoin has that initial move, and if Bitcoin turns around and it fails, a lot of these are going to turn right around and break those supports. So it's very important it's more important to manage your risk than it is to manage the profit, because profits, you can think of them as random. The risk is something you can define specifically, and you have to respect it. Because if you don't, you can get caught in something that gets really ugly, right? And then once you go into hope mode, you can get margined out. Like, you don't want to be at the mercy of the market. That's the whole idea. So you have this going for you here. You just need to reach one of these, you know, at least the midpoint. You need to be able to justify your risk. At that point, if you have some money taken off the table and you want to give it a chance to run, then you try to let some run. You don't have to take out the whole thing off the table, right? If it wants to pay you more, you just have to give it a chance to do that, right? And see if it proves itself or not. Elizabeth had, if you go back to some previous streams, Elizabeth talked about a trade she had in Ethereum, and she managed it very well because she bought in at a low, the thing went up, and then it started to go, and it started to run, and she gave it a chance to take some profit. She took some profits at good prices, gave it a chance, and then no longer paid. So she managed to get out of her smaller position near the top. Hold on a second. This computer. Okay, sorry about that. So that's a good example of managing a swing trade very well while keeping your risk defined and letting the market pay you, right? Until it no longer wants to pay you. You have to let the market make that decision. That's why people always say, oh, hold on. People always say, you know, how do I hold this thing longer? How do I hold it to the top? There's no way to do it. You just have to let the market do its thing until it proves otherwise, right? And give the market a chance. If you put it all for sale at like a price at some limit order at the top of the market, right, it may go there and it may go much further. So why not hold on to some and let it pay you, okay? It's a tough balance, but that's why it helps to have rules so that you could be objective when you're making the decisions. Because when money's on the line, it's very easy to throw rationality out the window and be emotional. That's just naturally what we do. All right, so let me move on here. Okay, so Jackie. Okay, hey, Jackie. I'm from Virginia. Oh, could you give you welcome? I don't think I've ever had anyone from Virginia in here. Could you give your opinion on Litecoin? All right, sure, Jackie. How'd you find me, Jackie? Did you find me on TradingView or did you find me on YouTube? Because I know the YouTube algorithm doesn't like me very much. I understand. I understand why, though. All right, let's take a look. Litecoin. So Litecoin is notorious for following Bitcoin and Ethereum. I mean, pretty much, right? So here's Litecoin zoomed out a bit. I'm not a huge fan of Litecoin because I don't like this relatively weak situation. Look at the bigger picture, right? This is the weekly chart on Litecoin. And with Bitcoin and Ethereum doing the amazing things that they've done recently, Litecoin should have done better than this up here, okay? And it failed again. It meant like halfway or slightly more than halfway, and it failed. That's relative weakness. I don't like that. Because if Bitcoin decides to really give something back, this thing's going to get hammered. And that's my concern, right? Relative weakness. A lot of coins, a lot of altcoins are in that situation. But besides that, you do have a buy signal in Litecoin, and this is a failed low. All right, you have a bullish pin bar off of a double bottom area right here. So that's a failed low. That's a buy signal, but this is a follower. So if Bitcoin can't keep its act together, this will turn right around and probably stop you out if you take this long and put the stop slightly below that pin bar. Okay? What you're looking for on this situation, if it can continue, because again, this is just all one big Bitcoin trade anyway. You need this thing to start to work its way back to that high and test that high. Okay? And you're going to need Bitcoin and Ethereum to do a similar thing. So it's the same story. All right, so I hope that answers your question. It's not a bad idea. Like I said, there are buy signals in quite a few of these things, but do you take them all? No. You take the ones that you like, you take maybe one or two, because it's really just one big Bitcoin trade, if you really think about it. All right, so thanks for asking, Jackie. I hope that helps. Peter, okay, no problem. Okay, gold. All right, sure. Let me see. Let me just run through these. Hey, Bill, can you take a look at Vuzi? Okay, let me just run through these. Okay, Irina. Anchor, please. My boss loved GameStop so much he lost 20K. Oh, wow. Yeah, okay. Thanks for the charts. Okay. I get free FMTA through mining. Oh, all right. Well, that's a different story. So you're not really putting money at risk. You're mining it. All right. I love these. Okay. Please, no casuals. Oh, I always get these funny names in here, right? Please, no casuals. Okay. Learn. Oh, cool. I'm glad you learn a lot. Please, no casuals. Okay. From Houston. I don't know. Okay. All right. Anyway, just running through the chat. All right. So let me just go through a couple more things here. So that was Litecoin. I was just running through the chat. Peter, gold. Gold. I like to talk about gold. Gold is one of those things that people like to get very opinionated with. Okay, you know, whenever gold does something good, you always hear the old timers going, "I've been gold 50 years in gold. Gold is going to go to 5,000. We have inflation." Okay, whatever. So gold is counter the dollar, and that's why I warned everyone about that dollar situation. In fact, let's take a look at the dollar first, real quick, before I get into gold, because the dollar is really like the king here, right? The dollar determines where everything goes, pretty much, because the dollar is a reflection of interest rates. I always look at this chart, and you should always take a look at the dollar index. The dollar had that pullback on Friday, but this is not a bearish trend. That's what I keep warning people about with this thing. Now, Powell spoke today. Obviously, he didn't have much of an effect on the dollar. I see a bullish inside bar. If we take out the high of that bullish inside bar, then this trend is likely to work its way higher, which is going to cause friction for all these other markets that trade against the dollar, right? Most notably gold. So gold has this, look at this bearish pin bar situation. Gold tried to bounce. You have a bearish pin bar, and it took out the low of the pin bar with the current candle. No good. All right. Plus, with that dollar in that bullish trend, I wouldn't do anything with gold yet. You are starting to get to some levels of interest. I mean, you have this level here. What is that? 1758. Those are attractive levels because you're near some kind of supports. But gold, I would argue that gold is still in this consolidation. That was an old gold trade from way back. I would wait for something like this. If you want to take gold as far as paper gold, CFDs or whatever, not physical. Physical is a different game, so you can't really trade. I wouldn't trade in and out of physical gold. That's like a long-term thing. But as far as paper gold or short-term, I think right now it's best to wait for the range low because the dollar does not look like it's going to have a significant pullback just yet. Okay, when the dollar has a significant pullback, then you're likely to see another leg higher in gold. But with this bearish momentum and that dollar strength, I would hold off. I wouldn't touch gold. Okay, and I like gold for longs, it's just too early. Okay, so thanks for asking. That's gold and the dollar. All right, VUZI. All right, VUZI. That's a stock, right? Let's see. I think this is a stock. Correct me if I'm wrong. But let's take a look here. 1 week. All right. So I remember this symbol. I guess when it was being hyped back there. This is one of those situations. It looks like that energy one that we looked at, right? The OSZX or OZSX or whatever it was tried to break out and it's given it back. Okay, so that's on the weekly. So when we go to the smaller time frame here, this breakout. I mean, you can argue that it could be the beginning of a structure change, meaning it was consolidating for a while, broad high or low, structure change. Now, the problem is with this is it shouldn't have taken out, it shouldn't have done that, okay? But, all right, we'll give it a chance, right? It's possibly in a higher low location, right? Because you went slightly lower than that low. So this is worth keeping an eye on to see if you get the higher low, but there's no buy signal right now. This candle is not supportive. It's not cooperative. You have a location where you may get a higher low. And if you want to take that chance after it proves itself, you can measure your risk on the next green candle. Because you're right in the middle, at the midpoint here. That's an ideal spot for the higher low to develop. Or maybe you get the double bottom. But if this red continues, then all it is, or basically everyone that got sucked into this breakout are just going to bang it out, right? So be careful with this. There's no reason to buy it yet, but you are at a location of interest. All right, so wait for more stability on something like this. Thanks for asking. Okay, let me just move on here real quick. Okay, no problem. So Anchor for Irina, ANKR, USD. How's this thing been doing? Let's take a look. So let's go to the weekly. Now this is interesting. I mean, this one certainly had a better run than some of these other ones. I mean, even better than Litecoin. Look, at least it tested its high. At least, okay? That's what you want to see when Bitcoin makes highs. Now let's just go back here. So it's coming off of that high, right? These long tails are basically coming off of that high. So this, I mean, I see a lot of these vertical candles in here. It looks like they're hyping. This looks like it's getting hyped or marketed somehow. I'd be looking for support levels, old resistance levels, new support levels. You're not near one right now. Let's take a look. Hold on. So you can argue, or you have like a little mini one over here because you have some tails. See the wicks on the candle? And it's trying to hold that. But I don't like when it's so close to like this. So I would look for lower levels if you're interested in a new long, right? You have a support there, and you have a support somewhere around here. Those are your supports on this thing. Now, if how it doesn't look like it's following Bitcoin very closely. So it may find support sooner and do something, something dramatic, but I wouldn't bet on that. I mean, look at these resistances back here, right? Look at these. This is where people get out. They've proven to get out, and that's where it's proven to sell again. So you're better off waiting for one of these lower supports. The first number I would be looking at is around 12 cents. How much is this thing right now? 15, almost 16 cents. So you have some room to play with here, but I'd be looking for this area if you're going to get involved in it, because I'm highly suspect of these hype coins, right? If there's a lot of hype in these things. So the best thing to go by, I think, is if it takes out support levels that it really shouldn't, like that 15-cent level. Is that, yeah, I'm sorry, 12-cent level, right? Or it starts taking out this level here. Those are supports that should not be taken out. If they're taken out, that means this thing is consolidating. It's not trending anymore, and you want to wait at least till range lows at that point. But I certainly wouldn't be buying it, in this area here. I hope that makes sense. So midpoint or low, consider those points for support levels and see if you get some kind of bullish price action there. I don't know if you're thinking of swing trading or investing in this thing, but these current prices are not attractive. All right. So thanks for asking. All right, cool. No problem. Rose all right, so SB, okay, physical gold. I look for physical gold. Oh, yeah, I mean, physical gold, think of it this way. When gold is red, buy some physical gold. But gold can easily go to 1,700, based on what's going on right now. So, physical gold is all about inventory. Obviously, there's no swing trading physical gold. It's all about inventory. And then there's all these other complex things, like is it gold coins, is it gold bars, and all that other stuff. So I don't think it's ever a bad idea to ease in slowly to physical gold, but you definitely don't want to plunk in all at like one price. I think you've heard me speak about that many times about other instruments, right? So I hope you find that helpful. All right, one more. I'm gonna do one more and I'm gonna wrap it up. Okay, so take a look at Cody, AVAX. Miskaya, actually I looked at AVAX earlier very quickly, but hold on, I got another question here. I just gotta run through, where is it? Okay, Rose for SB. So I'm going to do SB. So I'm sorry if I missed your question. I got to wrap this thing up. I guess SB is it's a stock. All right, correct me if I'm wrong. This is a nice looking stock. I see higher lows and higher highs. All right, that's good starting off. It's pulled back. Okay, and it's pulled back to this higher low potential area. And look at this run, this pop today. That's an interesting situation. How much is this thing? $3.80. Okay, so here's the thing. On something like this, you have a level where it found some kind of support. You have these old resistance levels here. I mean, when something is this cheap, I mean, this is pretty inexpensive, you can be buying here. You also have to be more flexible. You have a support there, right? So price really should not go below that. What is that, 326? And the current price is 380. You're looking at about more than 50, I'd say maybe 50 or 60 cents of risk if you buy that thing now. These things, again, they're very noisy. So if you want to be a little more technical about it, again, you can, just like Bitcoin, you could wait for the higher low or the double bottom. If you want to wait for a slightly better price, maybe something like this, you want to experiment with easing into it. Maybe you buy, $50 worth at one price, another $50 worth at another price until, you reach how much money you were going to buy of it anyway. Right? Does that make sense? And see if it holds the support. It may break and fool around because this thing, generally it's strong. Okay, I mean that's high. Those are higher lows and higher highs. I mean certainly you have some bullish momentum behind you there. But if it starts breaking these supports, then you don't want to keep putting on more. All right, because that would be changing the structure. Does that make sense? So in a situation like this, use the structure to your advantage. But if the structure doesn't go your way, then do something. Don't sit there and hope, right? That's the key thing with these, because this thing can change. It looks okay at the moment. I don't like when they start running like this and, I have to try to buy like the high of the initial move, just like Bitcoin. I don't like that, but this is a cheap stock, right? So it has a lot of room to fool around and stuff like that. And the general structure is bullish. So in these situations, you want to keep an eye on those key support levels. Like the question you're asking is, what level should it not break in order for this thing to still be considered strong? And that level basically would be like right here, right? It really should not break that level, and if it's going to remain strong. And that's the level is 315, but you can round that to $3. When it comes to these things, you can round that to $3. So if this thing is pushing below $3, it's probably time to step away from it, you know. And if you get in and it manages to push toward its highs, always make sure to take something off the table relative to your risk. So for example, if you're risking 50 cents and the thing is up 50 cents or it's up 60 cents in your favor, you start taking something off. You don't let greed step in and, oh, I think I could make $1 out. Maybe you can make $1, but take something off when you have the opportunity, because you don't know when it's going to turn and give it back, right? You're trying to achieve an average reward risk. You're not trying to max out your profit, which is what everyone tries to do. That's why no one makes any money. Okay, anyway, all right, so I got to wrap this up. I'm sorry if I missed your question. I apologize. I'll be back on Thursday. I usually stream twice a week. For all the new people, I want to thank you all for joining me, and all my regulars, of course. Thank you all for your great questions and participating. If you'd like to know more about Greenbridge and all this stuff, you can click on the Show More portion at the link below this video, and there's a bunch of links in there. We have a 7-day free trial and all that other stuff. The market's been, we're just getting out of this holiday period, so there hasn't been a lot going on, and we don't force trades, right? So just a couple of things. But I hope you got some good insight and some good perspective from my stream here, because that's the objective, right? I want you to be able to come out of this and be like, all right, I learned a few things, or at least I know what levels I'm looking for. I know what's realistic. I know what to expect if it goes right. I know what to expect if it goes wrong. And at that point, that's how you manage the position and adjust. So we'll leave it at that, okay? So this is how Bitcoin is looking right now. In theory, again, just to recap, I'd like to see that pull back to a higher low or maybe double bottom, because this thing has yet to prove that it wants to start breaking resistances. Maybe it breaks the resistance tonight, and then I'll have to look for a tighter, higher low or something. But I let the market tell me what it wants to do, and then I adjust. All right, so that's that. I want to thank you all for joining me. Enjoy the rest of your day or your evening, wherever you are in the world. And thank you so much for watching.